Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back. So, we will discuss now how using the demand and supply, these two opposite forces, how we can determine the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity in a market. Say we have to place demand curve and supply curve in the same panel, same framework. So, let us draw that. Suppose we are measuring as usual quantity demanded and quantity supplied in the horizontal axis and price in the vertical axis. Okay. So, suppose usual case we know the law of demand curve will be downward sloping and supply curve will be upward sloping. We have already discussed that. Yes, there is an exception for the demand curve, sometimes demand curve can be upward sloping, in which case we have told that if commodity is given good, price and quantity consumption, that relationship positively related, right. So, if there is a given good for a customer, okay, then individual demand curve may be positively sloped or upward sloping, right. So, let us start first that usual case where demand curve is downward sloping and supply curve is upward sloping. So, suppose this is the demand curve, say denoted by AB, and say suppose this red color is the supply curve denoted by CD, right. So, what is the equilibrium? Equilibrium, you know that demand and supply, these are the two opposite forces. So, equilibrium we will attain where these two opposite forces are matching each other exactly. So, of course, where we need, so equilibrium in this kind of framework, equilibrium will have two components, equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Okay. So, when we are talking about equilibrium, say suppose so many alternative possible prices we can think of, this price level, that price level, that price level, so many alternative price level we can think of. So, for equilibrium price we are searching for that price level at which quantity demanded and quantity supplied is exactly same. Okay. So, what is that price level? Definitely where the two curves are cutting each other. So, that price level, this is the price level at which quantity demanded and quantity supplied is exactly equal. In that case, this is the both quantity demanded as well as quantity supplied, right. These two AB and CD, that market demand curve and market supply curve, not the individual demand curve and individual supply curve, right. These are market demand curve and market supply curve to determine the equilibrium price in the market, right. Okay. Now, why this is an equilibrium, we can think of a different way. Suppose if, okay, let me draw the diagram afresh. Suppose AB is the demand curve, say CD is the supply curve, okay, and as we told that this is the equilibrium price. Suppose I am denoting that P star, O is the origin. So, O P star is our equilibrium O P star is equilibrium, PRIUM, equilibrium price. Okay. Now, suppose why this is equilibrium price, we are trying to understand that a little bit different way, right. So, suppose let us take one price level which is above this price, say suppose at this price level. This price level what is there? So, look at here, at this price level this much quantity demanded is there in the market, because this is the demand curve, AB is the demand curve. Okay. So, AB curve, market demand curve AB is telling that if price level is, say suppose this is OP1, if price level is OP1, that time this much is the quantity demanded of that product in the market and this much is the quantity supplied in that product of that in that market. Okay. So, obviously quantity supplied is more than quantity demanded. So, what will happen? What is the natural economic forces? You ask yourself, right? In a market for a commodity where lot of customers are there, lot of sellers are there, and it is such that the amount of product what is available which sellers are willing to sell in the product, customers are not willing to purchase that much quantity. That is the situation here, right? Quantity supplied is way above than quantity demanded. So, what will happen? Natural market force will make the price to come down, right, because lot of quantities are available, but not enough customers are available to purchase them. So, definitely perhaps sellers will try to reduce little bit price, okay. Customers also perhaps will not give that much price, will not be willing to give that much price, right. So, as a result price will have a tendency to come down, okay. Exactly the opposite scenario, suppose this is the price level, say OP2 is the price level. If that is the case, what is the quantity demanded? This much commodity, right, this much quantity of that commodity is demanded by the customers in the market, but only this much is available in that market. So, what will happen? Demand for that commodity in the market is way above than the supply of that market. What will happen? Perhaps sellers will try to increase the price, because sellers know that a lot of customers are available, they are willing to purchase the product, okay. So, even if we increase the price little bit, they will purchase because they need that commodity, right. So, there will be a tendency to price to go up. Look at here, when I am telling that at any alternative price other than the OP star price, right, in one cases price level has a tendency to go down, another case price level has a tendency to go up. Who is making that? Silently these demand supply forces are silently operating their actions or their activities, okay. And as a result accordingly the customers and sellers are adjusting their behavior. Through that adjustment price is moving in the certain directions depending on the situation, right. So, that is why again you can understand why market is called invisible hand. Nobody can observe from outside that how it is happening, how that price is moving one direction and another direction depending on the situation, right. So, when we are discussing that price level is actually below the equilibrium price level, we are telling that perhaps sellers will try to increase the price little bit. Do you think that it is always seller will try to increase the price? No, sometimes situation can happen that customers also bargain among themselves to increase the price. How? Okay, let give an example. We told that in the South India, no, there is an essential festival, one festival, it is called Pongal, okay, there is a festival. One is so there are certain rituals related to or attached to that festival. So, one sugar cane, full sugar cane is one essential part of that ritual, okay. So, demand for sugar cane will be every family that day need at least one sugar cane, right. Now, suppose nearby market, right, say only 100 quantity of sugar cane is available, whether 150 people are there, 150 potential customers are there, each of them want to purchase one sugar cane. So, what will happen? You know that day sugar cane is very important, that is almost a essential commodity that day, you have to purchase one. What will do? Perhaps I know that sugar cane the customer or sellers are ready to sell that one piece sugar cane maybe 20 rupee, okay. Realizing that lot of customers are there and it is so important that day, perhaps I will go and tell no, I am giving 25 rupee, you give me, because there is a long queue, okay, people are queuing to get that product, right. So, here actually customers themselves are bargaining. You can see in your rural market, no, when that some very important product or some precious product came, lot of customers are there, but not that much supply. So, suppose you are willing, you are one potential customer, you are trying to bargain a little bit, you are trying to ask the seller that can you reduce price little bit, you will see that another customer beside that, no, I am giving this much price, you give me. right. So, what is happening there? There essentially it is happening that customers are bargaining among themselves silently to increase the price. Okay. So, does not matter whether producers or sellers are increasing the price or customers are indirectly bargaining among themselves to increase the price, in any case price is moving a certain direction. Okay. So, that is the thing, and from that point of view we can tell that OP star is the equilibrium price, where quantity demanded and quantity supplied is exactly matching. So, let me discuss this thing afresh. Okay. So, we have quantity demanded, quantity supplied in the horizontal axis, price in the vertical axis. Say this kind of AB is our demand curve, market demand curve, always market demand curve we are talking about. This is CD, our market supply curve, okay, and we are telling that O is our origin, OP star is the market equilibrium price, and at that equilibrium price OQ star we can tell equilibrium quantity. In which sense equilibrium quantity? That much of commodity will be transacted in the market, because that much of demand is available, that much supply is available. So, all the demand will match exactly all the supply whatever is available in the market, right. So, that is the equilibrium quantity. So, of course, as we told, the any price above the equilibrium price, we will have this much of excess supply. This is called excess supply. Sometimes that is called surplus also, surplus. And if any price below the equilibrium price, this is called excess demand, or sometimes that is called shortage. So, all these terminologies are simply English word or English phrase, you can easily understand in which sense it is excess supply. This is excess supply because supply amount is this much and demand is only this much. So, some excess supply is there over the demand, okay, that is why it is called excess supply, or that is called surplus. Okay. Exactly the same way, this much of supply is there, but this much of demand is there. So, demand is more than supply, so excess demand is there. Okay. And that excess demand is sometimes called shortage also. Shortage means because the people, the customers, the amount of commodity they are looking for, they are trying to purchase, okay, that much supply is not available in the market. So, there is a shortage of commodity supply in the market, in that sense it is shortage. Okay. Okay. So, this kind of this is the equilibrium, this E point we are telling that equilibrium point where demand supply is matching each other exactly. Okay. This equilibrium we can tell stable equilibrium also, stable equilibrium. Idea of stable equilibrium is not there in the book we are following, but in this context we can discuss. I am sure that once I discuss that here, all of you will be able to understand what I am referring. This equilibrium is called stable equilibrium. By stability we are referring, this equilibrium is so that if for some reason, if market detached from that point, maybe something above, some price level above or some below price level, automatic market force will make the equilibrium price to come back to that OP star level again. Like we told, when price level is at this say OP1 level, excess supply is there than demand. So, automatic market force will push the price below that OP1 level. If somehow suppose this is OP2 level, price is little bit below that equilibrium price level. So, automatic market force, here excess demand is there. So, automatic market force will pull down or pull up the price from OP2 level to OP star level. So, stability in the sense that for some reason, if market got detached from the equilibrium situation, automatic market force will make sure that price is coming back to the equilibrium level. In that sense, it is called stable equilibrium as well. Now, of course, one question may come to your mind, can there be an equilibrium which is unstable? Okay. Okay, yes, that can be there. Okay, let us take another example. Okay, we know that at least we told that under certain cases, okay, demand curve can be upward sloping also if the commodity is given good, right. When this inferior good, given good, this kind of unusual kind of commodities we discuss, we also told that these commodities are subjective, means one commodity may be given to me, but may not be given to you, right. In that, suppose we are talking about in a market where major customers or major now most of the customers, this commodity for which this is the supply curve, okay, that commodity who are the customers, potential customers are available in that market, majority of them this commodity is a given commodity. Okay. So, what will happen? Yes, suppose 100 customers are there, to 90 of them this commodity is given good and remaining 10 it is ordinary good. So, to whom it is ordinary good, their individual demand curve will be downward sloping, but other 90 people to whom it is the given good, their demand curve, individual demand curve will be upward sloping. So, what will be the market demand curve in this particular market? This is the supply curve CD, this is the supply curve, I am telling supply curve, supply. Okay. So, definitely market demand curve, I have to take the horizontal summation of all those 100 different individuals demand curve. Okay. Since overwhelming majority has the upward sloping demand curve, we can expect that, okay, we can expect that perhaps market demand curve will be also upward sloping in this market. Okay. Now, the question is market demand curve is going to be upward sloping, okay, but whether that is steeper or flatter than this demand curve. Suppose this is the market demand curve, okay, say AB is the market demand curve, suppose. So, of course, this will be the equilibrium point E, in the sense that this will be the equilibrium price and at that price this much. So, this is OP star and this is OQ star. Of course, we are measuring quantity demanded, quantity supplied in the horizontal axis and price in the vertical axis, right. So, what I am telling, so this is the OP star will be the equilibrium price and OQ star will be the equilibrium quantity of that commodity will be transacted in the market, right. Now, let us see if price level is little bit below, say price level is little bit above than equilibrium price. So, this much supply is there, look at here, this is the supply curve and this is the demand curve, AB is the demand curve, right. So, this much supply is there and this much demand is there, what will happen? Demand is more than supply, what will happen? Automatic market force will pull the price even further, demand is more than supply, excess demand is there or some shortage is there of the commodity supply, right, definitely price will increase. So, and suppose this is the case, this is a price level which is below the equilibrium price level, at that price level this much demand is there, this much supply is there. So, what will happen? Supply is more than demand. So, what will happen? Definitely more lot of quantity supplied is there in the market. So, perhaps automatic market force will pull the price level even further down, right. So, we are reaching a peculiar situation. What is the peculiarity? Yes, OP star is the equilibrium price level, E is the equilibrium point, but if for some reason we get detached out of this E point, away from that E point, automatic market force will make the price level, market price level further and further away from P star. Okay. So, this kind of equilibrium sometimes called unstable equilibrium. Now, it will be clear to everybody that in which sense it is unstable. Stable equilibrium, automatic market force, if somehow your market is away from the equilibrium level, automatic market force will push the market again towards the equilibrium level or push the market price to towards the equilibrium price level. That kind of price equilibrium or that kind of equilibrium will be called stable equilibrium. Here it is happening just the opposite. Yes, at the point E you are reaching equilibrium, their demand and supply is matching each other, but for some reason if you are little bit away or market is little bit away from that OP star equilibrium price, then automatic market force will make the price level further and further away. Does not matter whether that little bit away you are above the equilibrium price level or below the equilibrium price level. If you are below in the price level, automatic market force will make the price level even further below, and similarly if you are above, it will make even above, even further above like that. Now the question is, of course we can ask ourselves, is it the case always that when for the unstable equilibrium that demand curve, or when demand curve is upward sloping, equilibrium will be always unstable? Answer is no. Look at here, in this particular case demand curve is upward sloping, okay, but demand curve is flatter than the supply curve. If we can see the opposite situation, say demand curve is upward sloping, but demand curve is steeper than the supply curve. Say quantity demanded, quantity supplied are measured in the horizontal axis, price in the vertical axis. Suppose this is the supply curve, I am writing just S, and this is the demand curve. Okay. Look what we are doing in this kind of supply curve, we are making as it is usual, positively sloped, okay, but demand curve we are making usual case downward sloping, unusual case upward sloping. Now the question is, when upward sloping demand curve without violating the supply curve's usual nature, upward sloping demand curve can be of two types, either demand curve is steeper than supply curve or flatter than the supply curve. We have discussed when demand curve is flatter than the supply curve, we will reach an equilibrium, but that is very unstable equilibrium. Okay, that kind of equilibrium in economics literature, advanced level development economics literature, sometimes called knife edge equilibrium kind of thing. Knife edge, you know, one knife, its edge very sharp, right, very thin kind of point equilibrium, and if you detach from that, no, it is very difficult to get back there again. So that kind of unstable kind of equilibrium, but knife edge equilibrium or razor edge equilibrium, that kind of equilibrium is some completely different kind of context. You need not bother about that. For the time being, you know that it is called unstable equilibrium. In which sense it is unstable, you understand. If you detach from, let me repeat again, if you detach from the equilibrium, automatic market force will not help you come back to the equilibrium again, rather that will make you further and further away from the equilibrium. Now the other case, yes, demand curve is upward sloping, but demand curve is steeper than the supply curve. So this will be the equilibrium. In this particular case, this will be the equilibrium price, say suppose OP star, and this will be the equilibrium quantity OQ star, right. Now suppose for some reason market price is away from OP star, say above, there that price, say that is OP1, suppose at that price what is the demand and what is the supply, you look at. This is the quantity demanded and this is the quantity supplied. So quantity supply is more than quantity demand. So what will happen? Automatic market force definitely will pull down the price. So you will come back this side. Exactly opposite here. This is the quantity demanded and this is the quantity supplied. Look at the which is the supply curve and which is the demand curve. In this particular case, quantity demanded is more than quantity supplied. So demand is more, excess demand is there, okay, or shortage of the commodity is there. So definitely price level will have a tendency to go up. So you will come back to the equilibrium. So yes, when in an unusual case, when demand curve is also upward sloping, that time still you can get the, so definitely this equilibrium, in this particular case what we are getting, it is definitely a stable equilibrium, right, because if you are detached from the equilibrium, market demand supply force is pushing you back to the equilibrium level again, right. So in that sense it is stable equilibrium. So let me summarize. Usual case, when demand curve is downward sloping, supply curve is upward sloping, you will get an equilibrium and that equilibrium will be stable equilibrium. When we are defining that to be a stable equilibrium, natural question may come to your mind, can there be an equilibrium which is unstable? Question is yes, there may be an equilibrium which is unstable. When that can happen? Of course, the demand curve should be unusual, the kind of economics so far we have discussed. We are not violating the supply curve's nature, it is usual upward sloping, but demand curve for the where majority of the customers, the commodity whose demand curve we are discussing, if majority of the customer, majority of those customers in the market, this commodity is a given good, maybe demand curve is upward sloping. So, demand curve is upward sloping, even in that case equilibrium can be stable, equilibrium can be unstable. So, instability of the equilibrium will come into the picture only when demand curve is upward sloping. Not only that, upward sloping demand curve is more flatter than the upward sloping supply curve. In that case equilibrium will be unstable. Alternatively, if demand curve is upward sloping, but demand curve is steeper than the supply curve, then equilibrium will be still stable. Now, the question is what is the real life implication of this demand supply thing. So, using this demand curve supply curve, we have discussed how the equilibrium price is determined in a market for any commodity or any service, and at that price level what will be the equilibrium quantity of that commodity or that service that will be transacted in the market. Okay. Now, in real life, if something happens, ceteris paribus, whatever the factors, we have discussed all these things under the ceteris paribus condition. When we are discussing this demand curve, this supply curve, we are just looking at between price and quantity demanded, quantity supplied, that relationship. So, we are assuming that whatever the other forces that can determine demand, whatever the other forces that can determine supply, those are held fixed at some level. So, that is the meaning of the ceteris paribus condition, right. Now, suppose something happens in those factors, okay, some real life situation, something happens, say due to that what will be the implication on equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity, that we are going to discuss now quickly. Say suppose today whatever is the usual weather, tomorrow it is becoming very hot, and we are talking about, when we are talking about tomorrow is very hot, it is vis-a-vis what is the usual climatic condition or expected climatic condition or expected heat, this atmospheric heat we are used to or we are expecting to get, right, vis-a-vis suddenly very hot weather came, right. And suppose the commodity whose quantity demanded, quantity supplied, whose demand curve, whose supply curve we are talking about, that commodity is ice cream or that commodity is a cold drinks. So, what will happen under the ceteris paribus condition, okay, your supply curve whatever was there, it will be there. So, this was the supply curve, demand curve perhaps earlier it was D1, now it will be D2, not necessarily it will be parallelly shift upward. I told that shift, it will, some shift will happen, but it may be parallel, it may not be parallel. So, what will happen, why it is outward shifting you can understand, because of sudden cold wave and this commodity whose talking, so quantity demanded, quantity supplied, as usual we are measuring in the horizontal axis, price we are measuring in the vertical axis. Okay. So, what will happen, so we can talk about at this price level, earlier market demand for that ice cream was this much, due to sudden heat wave market demand for that commodity at the same price is way above than what was earlier. Okay, demand for that particular commodity, because it is a ice cream or it is a cold drink kind of commodity, that commodity demand suddenly increases. So, if our target is to capture depending on some sudden change in the surrounding, in the atmosphere, what kind of effect will be there on our equilibrium price and equilibrium quantities, how we have to proceed. First, depending on the sudden change, what we are expecting, that change factor, whether that will be affecting demand or that will be affecting supply or both. First we have to identify that. Then what we have to do, suppose it is going to affect demand, like this demand curve is shifting somewhere, okay, upward or downward, whatever it is. Okay. In this particular case it is shifting outward, rightward, it is shifting, okay, rightward, because it is shifting right side. So, I am telling rightward shifting, okay, rightward. Okay. So, first if it is a rightward, the question is first question is out of the demand curve and supply curve which will shift. Second question is depending on the nature of the change in the atmosphere or change in the surrounding factors, which side it will shift. Okay. And then the third question is now that side you make the associated or corresponding diagram or corresponding curve little bit shifted and choose what will be the equilibrium. For this particular case, this was the equilibrium price earlier. Now, due to sudden heat wave, this is the equilibrium price. So, what is happening? Both equilibrium price is going up from this level to that level, equilibrium quantity also going up from this level to that level. Okay. Alternatively, suppose something is happening, this is the supply curve as it is, but demand curve is this was supply curve, demand curve was D1 here, D2 here, demand curve shifted leftward. So, as a result initial equilibrium price was this much, equilibrium quantity this much, now equilibrium price is this much, equilibrium quantity is this much, this is equilibrium quantity, this is equilibrium price, new equilibrium price. So, you will see that the book we are following at the end there is a table, that table to summarize depending on the how much movement of demand curve and supply curve, which direction that movement, okay, what will be the implication over the equilibrium demand price and equilibrium quantity. The message is that nothing to memorize that thing, you can do on your own without trying to memorize that, just whatever the situation is there, try to replicate that in the demand curve supply curve. So, suppose okay, suppose there is a major earthquake, okay, and this commodity is still commodity is ice cream. So, what will happen? Due to major earthquake and there is no other apparent changes are there in the surrounding. So, demand curve as it was, it will be that kind, but because of earthquake what happens, sudden some of the existing ice cream factories may be destroyed because buildings have been collapsed and all those things. So, as a result earlier supply curve was this kind, supply curve may shift leftward, right, this side leftward, or that side also you can think of how you will interpret that. This side means at this price at some given price level earlier this much quantity supplied could be there, now only this much quantity supplied is there because lot of the factories have been destroyed due to this earthquake. Okay. Sometimes cyclone, natural calamity, cyclone is there, right, due to that say some sugar orchards, no, those are destroyed. Okay. So, essential ingredient to the sugar factory supply shortage is there, as a result sugar production will be affected. So, the point is what is happening in the surrounding, in the real life, in the atmosphere, depending on that you have to decide which of these two, demand curve and supply curve, will be affected, then which direction it will be affected. It can affect the right hand side, left hand side also, or rightward, leftward, okay, in that way. And then certain things sometimes it can happen, this is demand curve, this is supply curve, say D1 S1, demand curve is shifting upward, rightward, supply curve also is shifting rightward. So, earlier equilibrium was this is D1, this is D2. So, D1 S1. So, earlier equilibrium was here, new equilibrium is here. So, if both demand curve and supply curve rightward shift, definitely equilibrium quantity will increase for sure, but equilibrium price whether will increase or fall, that depends on relative extent of shifting of the two curves, right. So, keeping all these things in mind, alternative you can do all these kinds of alternative trial and error and alternative kinds of diagrams, and as a result you can see whether this kind of cases, no. So, suppose this was the demand supply. So, demand curve is shifting huge, but supply curve also shifting rightward, but little bit less. So, what will happen? Initially this was the equilibrium, now this is the equilibrium. So, quantity definitely will increase, in this particular case price is increasing. Alternatively, if demand curve is shifting little bit, but supply curve is shifting huge relative to the demand curve shift, equilibrium quantity is shifting rightward, no doubt, but equilibrium price is falling now. Okay. So, that depends on relative shift of supply curve and demand curve. Okay. So, these things you can do, which direction, which curve if shifts, what will be the implication of the demand curve and supply curve. So, in our next lecture we will discuss another new concepts called elasticity of demand. Okay. Let us stop here and take care.